Hi and welcome to Bending Emacs episode 11. In this episode, we'll take a look at Winpulse. Wimpulse is a little Emacs package I wrote recently, so we might as well check that out. So what are we going to be using Wimpulse for? We'll use it to switch windows with a visual cue of sorts. Now, before we go and do some window switching, we should likely talk a little bit about Emacs terminology, as it predates some of the common terms that we are typically familiar with. Now, when you think of a Linux or a macOS window, what that's referring to in Emacs terminology is a frame. An Emacs frame can be displaying a single window or multiple windows. Each one of these windows will be displaying the buffer content. Now, a buffer content is typically associated with the content of a file, but not always. It could also be displaying some internal Emacs utility that does not require a file associated with it. As I mentioned, an Emacs frame can be displaying a single or multiple windows. You can use the built-in Emacs commands to split windows and get the desired layout or window arrangement that you want. To do something like that, you can use for example, Control X3, which splits the window horizontally. You can also use Control X2 to split it vertically. Let's maybe display something else in here. You can use also Control X0 from the active window to make it go away. You can split again to get a similar layout again. You can also use built-in commands like enlarge window horizontally, and shrink window horizontally to change the size of a window. So I'll go ahead and press Control X and one of the curly brackets, and you can see that I am changing the size of things. Similarly, if we do something like this, we can change the size vertically. Once you get the layout that you want, you're going to have to switch between these windows to work on them, or work on the active window or active buffer. And to do that, you use the other window command, and it's built in as well. And you can invoke it with Control X O, and I can press Control X O again and Control X O again. But you may notice at the bottom of the screen, it says Control XO, repeat with O, or capital O there. And that's referring to the fact that I have repeat mode enabled here. So if I just do Control XO and I press O again, you can see that I am changing or switching between these windows without having to press the full Control XO key binding. Having said that, at some point I came across somebody who had the meta O binding for switching to other windows, and I can't remember who it was, but I adopted it, and it's quite convenient for me. So I use meta O quite frequently to change between windows. Now, I've shown you how I'm switching windows here using Control XO or meta O. And one of the things worth mentioning, at least from my perspective, is that the visual cues as to which of these windows, at least in my configuration or Emacs configuration, is fairly subtle. If you look at the point or cursor, yes, it changes a bit of the style. It becomes solid when it's the active buffer in the active window, and you can also look at the mode line changes sort of subtly as well. Now, I could change my theme such that the active window mode line is more prominent, but I kind of like the way that it looks. Another reason why I don't want to necessarily rely on the mode line for this visual cue is that I don't always have a mode line enabled. In fact, if you look at the left window where the presentation is, there's actually no mode line there. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring the mode line back up and switch between these windows, and you can see the mode lines somewhat becoming a little bit more prominent, but it's not you know, super evident, that at least not to me. So you know, the goal for me, or the goal for this video, is to show you how to switch windows with a stronger queue, and which will coincidentally showcase the Wimpulse package that I mentioned earlier. Before I go further, I'm just going to go ahead and hide the mode line, just so I can continue with the same sort of setup that I had before. And so, as I mentioned, our goal here is to switch windows with a with some sort of visual cue, and I'll be showcasing Wimpulse, which effectively what I wanted here was to flash momentarily the focused window. Now, there are some really great alternatives here that we can use for a similar purpose. As I mentioned before, you could use the mode line for this. Folks also let me know of different solutions that I could use for what I wanted. The closest one that came to what I really wanted is Pulsar. Pulsar is really neat. It doesn't quite flash the focus window, but it does flash the current line. So that's pretty neat. Let me go and get that here. We enable it with Pulsar global mode. And as you can see, when I'm switching between these windows, there's a nice flashing of the current line. That is really nice. But as I mentioned, what I wanted to do was to flash the entire window rather than just the line, the current line. Let me go ahead and turn Pulsar off. There are some other options here. There's dimmer.el and windowdim.el. I'll let you go and check those out, but they're also nice alternatives. Now, in terms of Wimpulse, I'll go ahead and show you here to install it. The source is on GitHub, and it's not yet on Melpa. More on that in a minute. But to install it is fairly straightforward. You can use something like the use package snippet that you see here, and after it's installed, you can just invoke Wimpulse mode. And as you can see, we are now already flashing between the windows as we move or switch between them. That's really all the package does. You know, we can turn it off and switch again, and you don't see that effect, but I quickly got very used to this way of spotting which one is the window that I just changed focus to. If you want to go all out, you could also enable Pulsar at the same time as Wimpulse. So let me go ahead and turn that Pulsar back on. And as you can see, we are now flashing both the window itself and the current line. So that's pretty neat. So that's really it for today. I showed you this tiny package I built called Wimpulse, which flashes the focused window as you switch through the windows. The package is not yet on Melpa, but it will be soon. Thank you, OpenSauce04, for helping out with that. I also showed you some alternatives. Do you have a preference, or do you have maybe another option? Let me know in the comments. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, leave me some comments. I always enjoy those. Thank you.